Welcome to the Depth Dive. Here we sift through articles, research, and expert insights, really trying to pull out the most powerful takeaways just for you. Today, we're diving headfirst into something really fascinating at the heart of cinema itself. It's this tension, this divide between what some people call escapist cinema and what others champion as, well, real cinema. And we're going to ask some pretty profound questions today. Like, what is the actual difference here? Why do we as humans feel this deep need to escape sometimes? And yet, why do we also crave confronting, harsh realities? And ultimately, what does this whole tension reveal about us, the viewers, and maybe the storytellers too? So get ready for a journey into the psychology, the sheer power, and the very purpose of film. So where do we even begin with this? How about we just dive straight into what most of us probably think of for a movie night? Let's call it escapist cinema for now. These are films, right? They are mainly designed to give us a break, from the everyday grind, the burdens we carry, their main purpose, to entertain, to distract, to transport us temporarily into worlds that often feel brighter or safer, maybe more fantastical, or just, neatly resolved compared to our own lives. Think of the big ones. Marvel's Avengers, the Fast and the Furious films, Harry Potter, Avatar, Top Gun, Maverick. But it's not just about the huge budgets or the spectacle, is it? That charming rom-com, maybe set somewhere lovely, or even your favorite Christmas movie, they kind of fit too. They all share those core ideas: relief, distraction, and reassurance. And what's interesting, I think, is that this isn't automatically a bad thing at all.
No, not at all. It's actually pure brain science, really. Escapist cinema works on some pretty fundamental psychological principles. It, directly hits your dopamine reward system. It gives you that, everything's okay feeling, a burst of pleasure, optimism, maybe even a sense of safety. Think of it like your brain's natural self-care button. And here's the thing. In a world that feels pretty unstable sometimes, political issues, environmental crises, economic uncertainty, it's actually completely natural to gravitate towards films where, the heroes win, or where love conquers all, or order gets restored, even if it's just for a couple of hours. Psychologists even have a term for this, a form of emotional self-regulation. It's your mind's way of managing its own feelings. And it can be a perfectly healthy coping mechanism, and when it's done in moderation, of course. I mean, think back to World War II. Hollywood's musicals and screwball comedies, they thrived then. They weren't just fluff. They were like vital survival kits for the human spirit, you could say. Fast forward to today, and films like La La Land or The Greatest Showman, even Guardians of the Galaxy, they offer that same kind of dopamine hit. They help us cope with what some people are calling existential fatigue. That deep weariness you get from just the constant pressure and complexity of modern life. But, and this is the critical question from the source material, what happens when that escape starts to become avoidance?
That's such a critical point. Okay, so if escapism can potentially slide into avoidance, what's the counterbalance then? Is that where this idea of real cinema fits in? Like, does it force us to look at the very things we might be trying to escape from?
Precisely. Yeah, that leads us directly to the flip side of the coin, what some people term real cinema. Now, these are the films that don't really try to whisk you away. Not at all. Instead, they intentionally keep you rooted, sometimes even painfully rooted in reality. They ask the difficult questions. They don't always wrap things up with neat answers. And they tend to prioritize, well, true over comfort. There's that great quote from Andrei Tarkovsky, the legendary director. He said something like, "Art must give birth to a longing for the spiritual, the ideal. It must create pain and longing." What he meant, I think, is that these aren't just stories. They're designed as experiences. Experiences meant to shake you up a bit, make you feel a deeper truth, even if it's, uncomfortable. They challenge your assumption. They might unsettle you, maybe disturb you or provoke you. But the ultimate aim, really, is to leave you somehow transformed, seeing the world, or maybe yourself, just a little differently.
Right. So these are definitely not your Friday night popcorn flicks, are they? You're probably not walking out humming the theme song. More like walking out and maybe thinking about it for days, maybe losing some sleep, but in a good way, perhaps, in a way that really sticks with you. I mean, think about classics like Deceased Bicycle Thieves, or Bergman's The Seventh Seal, Truffaut's The 400 Blows. These are heavy hitters. And more recently, films like Distant by Ceylon, or 4 Months, 3 Weeks, and 2 Days by Mungio, and Béla The Turin Horse. Just, wow, these aren't feel-good movies. They're very much feel-deep movies. They tackle themes like poverty, despair, loneliness, systemic injustice, moral ambiguity, and they do it without filters, without sugarcoating. So what's the takeaway for us as viewers then? Maybe it's this: if escapist cinema kind of anesthetizes, then real cinema awakens.
And that really brings us to a crucial question, I think, for anyone making films, or even thinking critically about them. What is a filmmaker's responsibility? Is it primarily to entertain, to educate, to disturb, or maybe to heal? The truth is, probably, that both forms escapism and realism serve incredibly vital functions in society. They both matter. But what seems crucial is that filmmakers are, let's say, conscious of the role they're choosing to play. For instance, you can have a director primarily known for escapism, like Steven Spielberg. But in a film like E.T., he still manages to embed such deep emotional truth within that fantasy framework. And conversely, you have a realist director like Ken Loach. In a film like Daniel Blake, he offers sharp social criticism, yes, but also profound empathy and even a glimmer of hope.
Okay, so it sounds like what you're saying is it's less about picking a side like entertainment or truth, and maybe more about the intention behind the film, the consciousness of the filmmaker. But doesn't that put a huge weight on filmmakers? And isn't there a risk maybe that in trying to be a mirror or a moral compass, films could become preachy or even alienate audiences who are just looking for a good story, you know?
That's a very fair point, and it's definitely a constant tension they navigate. What's maybe concerning, though, are the cultural pressures filmmakers face today. We live in an era of, well, short attention spans and algorithms that tend to reward instant gratification. So there's immense pressure, often financial pressure, too, to dilute complexity, in favor of mass appeal. Just make it easy. But the best artists, I think, they resist this. They push back. They remember that cinema isn't just a product to be consumed. It is a mirror. It can be a moral compass. And sometimes it can even feel like a revolutionary act. They understand that their intention, their choices, deeply shape your experience as a viewer, whether it's aiming for comfort or confrontation.
Absolutely. And it's one thing to talk about these concepts, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it really clicks when you look at the specific creators, the actual people behind these different approaches. So who are some of the greats in the escapist realm? The list is pretty iconic. You've got George Lucas, obviously, with Star Wars. That huge mythic structure just dressed up as sci-fi, captured imaginations for decades. And there's James Cameron. Think Titanic, think Avatar. It's massive visual escapism, but often with these underlying themes like love or colonialism, survival.
Big themes and big packages.
Well, exactly. And Christopher Nolan, too, he gives us this really complex escapism, doesn't he? Films like Inception, Interstellar, they blend huge spectacle with some quite deep existential questions. And of course, Steven Spielberg, the absolute master of wonder and sentiment, Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park. He just knows how to transport you.
Oh, and we shouldn't forget Hayao Miyazaki. His animated fantasies feel so unique, but they're often deeply rooted in ecological and spiritual ideas. So you see this pattern, right? These masters craft entire worlds that feel so compelling, so absorbing, you just sink right into them. It's not just entertainment. Sometimes it feels almost therapeutic how they transport you. And now, if we look at the other side of that spectrum, the great realist filmmakers, their approach, their intention is often quite different. Think of someone like Béla Tarr. His films like The Turn Horse or Satan Tango.
Yeah.
Wow, they're these incredibly austere, slow meditations on suffering, on entropy, on the human condition itself. Then you have Ken Loach in Britain, a real champion of working-class realism, consistently giving voice to people often ignored by the mainstream.
Yeah, his films have such power.
They do. And Chantal Akerman, her work offers these really unflinching studies of loneliness, domestic life, feminist perspectives and spaces.
Yeah.
Very influential. And Abbas Kiarostami, the great Iranian director, his realism had such a poetic sensibility, often blurring the lines between, truth and fiction in fascinating ways.
The meta aspect. Yeah.
Exactly. And there's Andrei Tarkovsky, who we mentioned earlier. His cinema is often called spiritual cinema, exploring time, memory, metaphysics, big, deep themes. And maybe we should also give a collective mention to filmmakers like Ramin Bahrani, Christian Mungiu, the Dardenne brothers. They're all known for this kind of sharp political or ethical realism, showing life as it is, often quite raw, without much embellishment. These filmmakers, they don't just show you the world, they often force you to really see it in all its complicated, sometimes uncomfortable reality.
Okay, so we've explored these two, quite distinct paths in filmmaking, escapism and realism. The big question then, I suppose, is, do they have to be in opposition? Is it always one or the other? Do we, as viewers or creators, have to pick a side?
And the answer, thankfully, seems to be not necessarily, no. We've actually seen some brilliant examples of films that manage to blend these approaches, hybrids, if you like.
Yeah.
Take Bong Joon-ho's Parasite. What a film. It's incredibly thrilling, right? Even entertaining in a dark way, suspenseful, funny. But at its core, it's also this deeply, deeply critical look at class inequality. It does both.
Absolutely. It stays with you long after the thrill.
Exactly. Or think about everything, everywhere, all at once. It uses this wild, multiverse fantasy structure, pure escapism in some ways, but it spins that into this incredibly touching exploration of identity, generational trauma, finding meaning and purpose. It's chaotic, it's hilarious, it's visually inventive, but man, it hits you right in the gut emotionally. It uses the fantasy to get at something very real.
That feels like the sweet spot, doesn't it? When the escapism isn't just empty calories and the realism isn't just unrelenting despair, it's when the form and the function, the style and the substance, they meet in service of something truly meaningful for you, the viewer. It's about films that can entertain and transport you, sure, but they still leave you with something profound to chew on afterwards. So as you go forward watching films, maybe making them or just thinking about them, maybe hold on to this core insight. Cinema is never truly neutral. It's always doing something to you or asking something of you. And we'd really encourage you to actively engage with that. Ask yourself that critical question we found in our sources. What is this film doing to me and why? Just asking that question can change how you experience every movie you see. We hope this deep dive into escapism and realism has maybe stirred some thoughts for you, perhaps even shifted how you think about your own tastes and preferences. Do you find yourself drawn more to real cinema or escapist cinema? Or maybe, like a lot of us, you find you actually need and crave both at different times. Keep watching, keep engaging, and most importantly, keep thinking.